Okay. Hey there, everyone. How's it going? You guys hear me okay? Oh, hello. Okay, cool. We'll get started in just a sec. All right. We are good to go. All right, so today's like our last actual class that we'll all meet together in Zoom, okay? Just so you guys know. So the project is due on the 18th. So that's what, a week and a day from today? So yeah, next Wednesday, the final project is due. So we're just gonna kind of go over the last few little lessons today that are pretty small. I'll talk a little bit about comic page layout and about character design. And then we'll look at some student examples of final projects. So hopefully you guys have all started at least looking at those final projects, thinking about what story you want to do, and hopefully starting some thumbnails for that. So before I get started, is there any questions that have come up about the final project that is due next week? Confusion on any of the directions? Questions on the requirements at all? Okay. So probably questions will come up as we go through class today. So just let me know as things pop up. Oh, and I sent you guys those videos detailing the creative process going from thumbnail to workup sketch to final art flat color and then final art with like shadow and highlights on it. Someone let me know yesterday that they were like the videos were locked, so I went through and unlocked all those, so they should be able to view. So make sure that you double check those for kind of the overall process that you use using Photoshop and stuff for the final project. Okay, so the final is due on the 18th, so next Wednesday. And next Tuesday, we're not going to have any actual lecture or class or anything like that. But what I will do is just have open lab hours. So what you can do is come in and check in with me, ask me any last minute questions. I can look over your work one last time before you turn it in. I can look over like your PDF file, make sure it all looks organized, and give you guys like last minute suggestions before the project's due. So I will have those available there, or I'll send out a link next Tuesday, but I'll just say it's open if anyone wants to log on and ask questions basically. And it will be from just 11 to 12 next week. But other than that, I just want you guys to kind of focus on working, getting really good final projects that you can turn in next week. And then we will be doing critiques this week. So I think I'll have that due on Friday, where you guys will submit probably what you'll want to submit are your thumbnails. That'll be the easiest thing to submit. If you're further along and you have a workup sketch or any start of your final art, you can submit that as well. But yeah, so I'll send that out tomorrow or maybe later today, and it'll just be a discussion like we've been doing, and you can just post your thumbnails, your work in progress, and ask any questions, and I'll offer feedback and kind of suggest which thumbnail may be the best, what adjustments you want to make as you move forward and things like that. You guys can also look at each other's work and get some ideas and comment on each other's work and ask questions about your own work. So that'll be like the last thing that's due before the final project will just be the critiques due at the end of the week this week. So make sure, yeah, you're working on that creative process and you utilize those critiques as a way to just get feedback on your work. So that's going to be the best way to kind of make improvements and make decisions on your work, are using those critiques. Okay. So I have some student work to show you. Oh, Trinity, I don't have a requirement for the critiques, but the more thumbnails you can have done, the better. So if you have all 7 of those thumbnails done, that would be the best. Then I can say I like number 1 and number 2. and then you can choose from which one of those two you like. Yeah. So yeah, no real requirement, but if you just have like one rough sketch, that's not going to be as helpful as having multiple things to look at. All right, let me show you guys some student projects here. Okay. All right, so this is Carmela Luz. This is from a couple years ago. So have you guys all decided on what story you're gonna do? Are you gonna keep doing your same story from before? Oh yeah, good question, Trinity. I will get to that. Let me double check and see what it says there on the project description here on Canvas. So yeah, if you guys look here at the little rubric down here, this is on the project description page. This is kind of how the points will be distributed as I'm looking at your work. So final art is worth the most. So making sure you just have a really good piece of final art done. So that I just kind of want to see everything that we've talked about throughout the quarter. So is there a specific color scheme you're using? Are you using cool colors, warm colors? Good question, Eleanor. I'll get to that when we talk about some of the comic stuff. So the final art is that, do you have a specific color scheme you're using, and does it match the tone of story you're going for? One thing is just, do you have an understanding of Photoshop? So is it presented, can I tell that you know how to use the brush tool and apply shadows to your work and have clean line work? I don't want to see like little bits of white showing through sometimes on the drawings. And so, yeah, so just that the final illustration kind of encapsulates everything we've talked about. So is there a drawing of a person in there? Is there an environment with some perspective? Is there good use of color? Things like that. The preliminary work is worth 70 points. So that's just seeing, so that's some rough sketches for thumbnails, some workup sketches, some character designs leading to your final artwork. Can I see that you've gone through that process of coming up with an idea in your head, sketching it out roughly, designing some characters, and then eventually leading to the final art? And then that presentation is worth 60 points. Again, I just want to make sure you know how to save it as a PDF, have your label what I'm looking at on each page. Is this workup sketch? Is this final art? Is this character designs, whatever it may be? And that's just all presented and the file's named correctly and things like that. So yeah, obviously the biggest portion of that is the final art. So I do want you guys to spend the most time on that, but preliminary work and presentation will also matter. Does that answer your question, Trinity?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, let me know if anything else comes up. And yes, here are some student samples here. So this is Carmela's. This is from a couple years ago. So she chose to do Little Red Riding Hood. So she kind of chose a well-known story because she was familiar with it, and then she could design the characters based to that story. So there's her character designs. So she, designing what the wolf will look like, what the character Red Riding Hood will look like. She probably had to look at some pictures to get this outfit and this clothes to figure out kind of what era it's going to be. And if you do a story like Red Riding Hood, for those of you that had taken my Art 109 class, you don't have to keep it like the traditional Red Riding Hood story. You can make, she's a superhero, or she's in the future, or they're in a city instead of in a forest, whatever it may be. You can change, maybe Red Riding Hood's this crazy hunter that's hunting these wolves or something like that. So you can put any sort of twist and change the story around to whatever you want to do. But Carmela kind of chose a traditional Red Riding Hood story. Here's her thumbnails. I think this was more than 7 required when I did this version of the class, but you can just see her working through different ideas here. Okay, so just trying out different compositions, close up. Oh, do I want it, facing the wolf, walking through the woods? Do I want to see the house in the drawing? Here's one where we see kind of, walking into the teeth of the wolf. One where we see the inside of the house. And then here's her workup sketch. So you can see the rough sketch and then just where the lights and darks are going to go as well. So it's going to be light and dark right here on the character, darker here in the foreground, which makes sense for perspective. Darker things are closer to us, lighter things are further away. And then there's the final arc with the nice clean line work, good shadows on there, kind of simple shadows, which is good, just hard edged shadows, but it really makes the character stand out, and it's a good color scheme. So it's all cool colors except for the main character, which makes sense for the character there. So this one was really nicely done. Let's look at a couple other ones. Here's Lara's. So she had a bunch of characters here in this one. So I think this is her own personal story she was working on. So yeah, here's the thumbnails. So again, yeah, look how rough these are. Thumbnails do not need to be like finished or anything. They should be really sketchy. These might actually just be a little bit too big, but that's okay. I'm not going to mark you off if they're too big. If they're larger, they just take a little bit longer. Same idea there, just different options. It can be helpful to think about it like a cover of the story, like you're designing a book cover. And there's her character design. So you have to do a character design for any character that will appear in the illustration. So she has a bunch of characters. So she had to do a lot of character designs, but really nice character designs. We'll talk about this today. Yeah, for the thumbnail sketches, they can just be about 2 or 3 inches tall. So they don't need to be too big. Just 2 or 3 inches tall for those thumbnail sketches. And here is her workup sketch. So you can see she took, where is it? This idea right here as a thumbnail sketch, refined it for a workup sketch, figured out what all these people would look like, figured out their poses, figured out where the light and dark values will go. And there's the final art. Nice final art here. Good clear focal point, good character poses. And there's the description of her story. Okay. Let's see. I had a comic example. Oh, so here's one as a comic. So we'll talk about comic page layout today. But it's really going to be similar to what we did in that first project in terms of storyboarding. Is basically doing a comic page is similar to that, except you're fitting those storyboards into a comic book page. So there's her character designs. Really nice designs there, the 2 characters, rough sketch, and thumbnails. So for the comic page example, I don't need to see 7 individual pages, but I would have liked to see a few other options here for her rough sketches. So I need to see at least, 7 different versions of panel layouts and what may go in the panels as well. So who asked about that? So yeah, Eleanor, for doing that, yeah, I don't need to see 7 completely different versions of each of the page, but I do just want to see kind of maybe 2 or 3 different options for panel layout. And then you can just say like, okay, panel 2, here's 2 different options for panel 2. Panel 3, here's 2 or 3 different options for panel 3 as well. So you don't need to do like 7 versions of the entire page, but I do want to see kind of at least 7 different options that you're thinking out for what may be in the panels and the way the panels are arranged. If that makes sense, Eleanor. Cool. But yeah, this one came out really well. So this one has a really nice establishing shot, and then moving into another wide shot where you see how the two characters are moving. You got a 2 shot with a medium shot of the characters, and then into the close-up. So that one came out really well, where you're kind of slowly zooming in that camera onto the characters. Here's Alicia's. So yeah, if you are doing your own story, do write just a short description of what your story is. Just so I kind of have an idea of what you're illustrating. So there's thumbnail sketches, character design there, front and back. So if you're only going to have one character, you can do it like from the front and back or front and side. And then if they are going to have like a weapon or a prop or something that they use, you can include that in your character design as well. Workup sketch with value. And there's the final art. So the only one that this is missing is I would have liked to see a little bit more of a background in here. I do want to see a character in an environment. So maybe if she would just put like some more hills or maybe some houses or buildings back here, that would have helped rather than just having kind of the grass and plants in the foreground. But really nice pose for the character, really cool colors in here. Good limited palette, just doing the background is all desaturated and then leaving the bright, excuse me, the bright colors on the character and in the foreground. Here's Antony's. So yeah, little story description, thumbnail. So here's our hand sketch thumbnail. So you can see he has about 6 of these on a page in his sketchbook. So that's about the right size there. Character designs. So some character designs and the environment design. What will the environment look like? Some weapon designs as well. Workup sketch where the value is going to go. Then there's that final art. So I really like the color palette he chose here, all warm colors. So yeah, from the red of the sky, pink moon, yellows and oranges, all there for the warm color composition. And I like the Dutch tilt that he's using. So the diagonal in there to get a sense of action. All right, any other questions after seeing these? Thumbnails, character designs, workup sketch, final art. This is Jessica's. Okay, so yeah, hopefully for the critique, you will probably have some thumbnail designs. You may have character designs. You may be all the way to the workup sketch. So I'm not gonna, have a specific requirement for what you turn in for the critique, but kind of the more you have, the further along your ideas are, the better I will be able to give you feedback. And it'll be more interesting for you guys to like look at each other's work as well. All right, any other questions on the final project? All right. Does everyone have a story chose? Do you guys have your story chose yet? Know what you're doing? Little Red Riding Hood, yeah. So Ryan, think about what sort of mood you want to do that. If you want to just do traditional Little Red Riding Hood, or you can, push it to be like a horror story. You can make Little Red Riding Hood an adult. You can make like a mutant wolf. You can make it, whatever you want to do. Or you can make it super, like for a little, if you want to do like little kid children's book style as well, you can do that as well. So thinking about the, the audience for your story is a good way to do it. Is a story for adults, little kids, adolescent kids, whatever it may be. That can kind of be a good way to decide on style and stuff for how your story may look. Is anyone doing their own original story? Okay, so the character design is part of this project. Has anyone ever done character design before? Like just made up what their own characters look like for different stories or things like that? Ryan has, good. Yeah, character design should be really fun, hopefully. It's a big part of the story. You know, obviously your characters are the ones going through and experience the story. That is who whoever is looking or reading your story will kind of grab onto and you know, relate to. They'll obviously relate to those characters in there because that's who's experienced the highs and lows of your story. So you really want to have well thought out character designs. And the biggest thing is you want your character design to tell a story. So the way your character looks, you want to, someone looking at your character should be able to get an insight into the character's personality, who they are, their age, their occupation, and then even things like their attitude, kind of their emotional state and things like that. So you should have fun designing these characters and use that as a way to further push the story that you're telling. Okay, so just make it into something interesting and hopefully something relatable too that people can, you know, use to understand a bit about the story. So when you are designing your characters, the most important thing should be the overall silhouette of your character. Okay, so that means even if your character is filled in solid black just as a silhouette, you should be able to tell who that character is. So you want to design those silhouettes with clarity. So you never want someone looking at one of your drawings or your illustrations and being like, wait, what character is that there? You should make it super clear to the people viewing it. And for those silhouettes, you also want to contrast those silhouettes. So that means you don't want two characters to look exactly the same when they appear on a page together. So you want those silhouettes of your characters to look dramatically different from one another. So usually when I'm starting out, I want to just start out with very small, you know, thumbnail sketches as I'm designing a character. And I just want to start with kind of thinking about a silhouette shape that can be easily recognizable and can be unique. So think about when you know your friends really well and family members. And even if you are, you know, 100 feet away from someone that you know really well, you will still be able to recognize them. And you can tell who that person is from really far away. And that's not because you can see the individual, you know, facial features, the shape of the eyes, the individual strands of hair, their mouth. That's not what you're recognizing from far away. You're recognizing the overall shape of their body, how they walk, how they carry themselves. And so it's kind of like you can tell that silhouette design, okay? So I usually just want to start by thinking about a silhouette and how can I make this a unique, interesting silhouette that tells a little bit about who this character is. And that then is also just something interesting and hopefully kind of catches the eye of the viewer. So basically the silhouette you want to avoid is just this silhouette, which is like Joe average character. Like that could be, that's not a very interesting silhouette. You want to try and be more unique with that. How are you designing this person? And that silhouette, it forces you to not focus on details at all. So you're avoiding the details at that point. and you're just focusing on those really big shapes. So that's a good place to start when you're thinking of that silhouette. Is how can I make it unique? How can I make it read from a distance? And how can I make it easily recognizable? And if you are going to have more than one character, think about making sure your silhouettes are different enough, okay? And as you're doing this too, you can kind of think of simple shapes that define the character. So for this guy, I was kind of thinking of tall, skinny rectangles. Here, this guy, I was thinking more rounded and squared shapes. This character here, thinking like elongated hourglass and smooth curves. So you can think about those simple shapes to help you create those simple designs and those ones that will be unique and stand out. So you want to have an idea in your head of a character, and then you can start to illustrate those silhouettes and say, you know, what does this character look like? Okay. Let's try this guy. And it's going to help you to like exaggerate your characters as well. To exaggerate your character. So that means, you know, if someone's short and round, make them really short and really round. If someone's, you know, tall and skinny, make them super tall and super skinny. If someone's really boxy and strong, make them really use those angular shapes to make them really boxy and strong. So there's a number of different ways to do that. But, you know, again, starting with that simple silhouette can help you think about it. So once you have that silhouette, then you can start to get into those details. So you should be able to tell that silhouette first. So if you have a small drawing of your character, like in a wide shot, you should be able to tell what that character is. And then you go in and you can have fun adding small details. So silhouette first. And then to details. And as I come in here and think about adding details, I want to fit those details to this silhouette. So I don't have to follow it exactly. You know, my silhouette was kind of a rough sketch, but I'm just going to kind of use that as a basis, a guideline here to help me come up with a unique, fun, weird, interesting looking character. I don't really know what this guy is, but hopefully with starting with that good silhouette design, then you can kind of just have fun and add on details. And, you know, kind of how you do character designs will depend on your style. So some people have more cartoony style. Some people have more realistic style. So when I was talking about that exaggeration, making people really tall or really short, if you have kind of a cartoony style, then it can be really fun to exaggerate it and make those really unique characters as well. May give him a little peg leg here for some reason. Okay, but the details should be kind of fun storytelling. I like to put, you know, little stains and make things kind of ripped and broken, make things look used is usually a good way to do it. You don't want things to look too brand new unless that's your character where they always have on brand new clean clothes. Then that would be something you want to exaggerate for that character. But more than anything, just have fun with character design. We'll look at some examples here in a sec, but it's widely used. You know, character designer is a very, you know, popular or a favorite job for, like, you know, when you're designing characters for animated movies, for video games, even for like live action movies as well. There's still character design and costume design that goes into that. But you want to design, you know, a character that can fit in and exist in the story and the world that you are, that you're creating and the story that you're telling. All right. Any questions on that? Another way to do it, and you know how I often like to start as well, is starting with a written list or a written description of your character. So just coming up with a written list. So like, you know, a job, someone have a job. What sort of job should we think of for a character? Do you guys have any ideas? What job should we do? Design for a character. Mail carrier, there we go. Mailman, mail carrier. Okay, mail carrier. What age should this character be? '26. Okay, so they're kind of new, kind of starting out. So what sort of build do we want this person to be? Round, skinny, buff, regular, male, female, skinny. We got skinny, skinny/long. Okay. And does this character have any hobbies or habits outside? So I like to think of, you know, it's a character always drinking a cup of coffee, or always smoking a pipe, or always, do they always have their pet bird on their shoulder? Any ideas that we can add to this character to make them a little bit more interesting and into a real person? Could be anything at all. Are they always carrying a walking stick around with them? Oh, a skateboard. I like that. A skateboarding mailman. Age 26. Oh, and then another one. Attitude/personality. You know, are they happy all the time? Are they grumpy? Are they wide-eyed looking out at the world? Are they jaded? Are they angry? Are they just laid back and chill? Sleepy and mad. I like that. The sleepy mad. You gotta get up early to do those do all the mail routes. So what I would do here is what I need to do is, I'm not exactly sure what a mail carrier looks like or what their outfit looks like. So, you know, doing a quick preliminary Google search is going to be a very good way to help you out with that. So I just want to look and find where I can see a good look of what they're costing. Okay, good. So that bag is going to be important to include. Do I want to design them in the winter or in the summer outfit? There's kind of those different variations. Oh, I like this guy's winter setup. So use these for inspiration. I'm not going to follow those exactly, but it is helpful to get a couple visuals of what they may look like. Oops. So that's when I will then kind of start with the silhouette thumbnails, where I just kind of start to sketch this out. So we want this guy tall and skinny. So I'm going to kind of focus on tall, long, skinny shapes like that. And again, it's part of your style for how much you want to push this and how much you want to design. And it have this be more realistic or kind of more stylized and cartoony with really exaggerated poses. I want to give them, so it looks like some of them wear a hat some of the time. Okay, so some of them have just baseball style hats I'm seeing. Some have more like sun hats. So we got a couple options, kind of like that sun hat style. All right. So, you know, I would do a few of these different ones. So maybe try one with like a rounded head. Maybe he's doing a backwards cap here. Give him a little straighter stand-up angle here. Try and get that mad pose and maybe put the hands on the hip there. I like getting any sort of accessories in there, you know, bags, backpacks, walking sticks for older people, hikers. And I kind of like putting them in the shorts here. And then let's just put them on the skateboard here. And then what you do is then you can take this and just like how I did with that other example, then you start to fill in those details. On that person. You can get, you know, photos of actual people's faces that you may like. And then this is where I can start to look at their outfits. Kind of like it with the jacket here on top. That can show me, you know, you got to have the little badge here, the little name tag, other pockets. Strap coming across. But I like to do it where I start with that list because that kind of just helps me generate, you know, different ideas before I have to start doing any actual drawing. So you just come up with ideas of what this character may look like. We'll put the badge over on this side. So you can kind of figure out what that character may look like and the personality and the details that make up that character before you start to do any actual drawing, you know, so then you can focus on the drawing after you kind of have those different things figured out there. And some tall socks there. And then put him on the skateboard. Now I want to see a skateboarding mailman. Could be more efficient to deliver the mail. But you know, some patches in the jeans. Maybe he has a tattoo on this leg. All right, but again, and then if this guy was gonna have like a sidekick or another friend that's also in the you know, mail carrying business, then maybe I make that character squat and round and really boxy. So whenever these two characters are on screen together, I'm not going to be able to, I'm not going to get them confused. You're always going to know which character is which there. All right. Any questions on character design? Thoughts on that? All right. So yeah, those when you do the character design for the project, they don't need to be like super finished, you know, refined drawings. As long as you have an idea of what your character looks like, they can be kind of sketchier just in pencil before. So, but it is a good idea to know what your character looks like before you start to draw the character in that final art or even in that workup sketch. So usually I kind of want to do those character designs either right before or right after thumbnails. So you don't want to get too far along in the process before you know what that character is going to look like, because that'll inform the rest of your drawing too. Okay. So that's character design. So now we will just talk briefly about comic page layout. All right, has anyone ever made their own comics before? Their own comic pages? Comic books, comic pages, comic strips. Anyone ever made their own? No, okay. Cool. So that's cool. So if anyone wants to do, wants to do that comic page layout for the final project, I just want to give this kind of short little explanation, kind of how to lay that out on a page. If you do want to do that, so the biggest thing for that is, you know, rather than doing that one large finish illustration, doing that comic book page is doing probably 3 to 6 smaller panels. So each individual drawing may take a little or take less time, but it may take more time to do the overall page, just depending on kind of your speed and what is in those individual panels. But the biggest thing for that, for your comic pages is clarity. So this goes back to our first project where we were doing the storyboarding. It's very, very similar to that. So you guys already have done some good practice with that storytelling drawing. So it's going to be the kind of the same thing as that, where you're laying out a sequence of events. And then, but you're rather than just having all those panels be the exact same size and shape, where we were just kind of doing rectangle, 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 all the same size and shape, you're going to be fitting it into a page. Okay. So the biggest thing is we want clarity. So you never want someone to be confused when they are looking at your drawing. You want them to be able to tell what's going on in the story. And then from there, you can kind of fit those different drawings into that page and into different size panels. So the biggest thing for clarity is you want an establishing shot. So remember those establishing shots. It's a wide shot that shows character, and the location. So that establishing shot should give a lot of information to the viewer. Where are we? What's going on in the story? What's the mood going on? What's the day like? Is it daytime, nighttime, rainy, sunny, whatever it may be? You want to give that, you want to give someone a lot of information with that establishing shot. And then you also want to have kind of a focal point panel. And that is usually one panel on your page that is the largest. And oftentimes, when you start to do color, it contrasts the color. So that's meaning maybe all your other panels are cool, but then that one focal point panel is a warm color. Or maybe all your panels are desaturated, and that one focal point panel is really, really saturated with really bright colors. So think about what panel you want to kind of stand out and be the focal point of that page. Okay. And then the amount of panels. There's not one right answer for that. Okay. It depends on you as an artist. It depends on what sort of story you're telling, but I find the sweet spot is 3 to 5 panels. Okay. If you start to get more than 5 into 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 panels, a lot of artists do that. I'm not going to say that's not an option, but sometimes it can get a little bit too crowded on the page. And then you're drawing a whole bunch of different drawings as well. I find that 3 to 5 is a really good sweet spot where you can have a good amount of panels on there. You can tell a good amount of story without it being overly complicated and crowded on there. So what you want to do is you have your the size of your page figured out. And since you guys only have to do one page, I might, just make a couple of different options here. But you do want to have, just how we did for the storyboard panels, you do want to write out just a very, very short description of the panel. So, or of the story, the part of the story that you're going to illustrate. So maybe a rainy night. Our hero is on top of a building, then jumps off. Okay, so super simple. But I have enough information here. So our hero, I'm just going to make it a generic superhero for this example. I want to show that it's a rainy night, and I want to show that they're on top of a building. So you can just start playing around and doing these rough sketches of how you are going to lay this out. So usually I want to think of kind of doing everything on a grid. Some comics and some artists will start to get like really creative with like weird diagonal panels, different shape panels, things like that, which is okay. But generally that reduces the clarity. So I'm going to recommend just keeping everything on a grid. And the way you're going to read it is left to right, just like a book, and then top to bottom. Just the same way we read a book, you're going to read it here and then follow the panels that way. Okay. So I want to start with that establishing shot. So I want to see, I see the character here, superhero. a rainy night in the city. We can draw some more buildings in here. So this is how I would lay it out as a thumbnail design. And then we got to do the same thing as before. So I want to know who this character is. So maybe we go to a close-up or medium shot. A classic character, superhero looking over the city. Maybe I really want to feel the anger and vengeance in this guy. Then we go to more of an extreme close-up. And then I want this jumping off the building to kind of be the big focal point, action-based moment of the story. So I'm going to have this be the largest panel. And this can be our sweet action shot of the character jumping off. And maybe this is where I will use some 3-point perspective to really feel the energy of that moment and of that city. So then in terms of doing those thumbnails that you're gonna turn in, so then maybe you like switch this around. Oh, maybe I want a vertical panel here for the establishing shot. So you can feel how tall these buildings are. Put the character here. You can feel those really tall vertical buildings. And then I can go into the medium shot and close up, like here. And then maybe I have a slightly different, pose. Maybe I want this character come in, right up the middle here. We have the buildings coming up this way. All right, so, and then you can go in and try some variations. So maybe I want a different version of this panel here. So this is kind of how you'll lay out the thumbnails for that comic page. You can just come here and say, oh, here's a different version of this. Maybe I want the character up a little bit higher on that building and all the other city buildings kind of feeling below the character there. So like the character's up on the highest building there. But then that should give you about, 7 different options that you can play around with in terms of laying that out. And then when you get to the coloring too, I usually like to lay down something darker than that. One simple flat color, the way we did with the color script, to kind of match the mood of each panel. You get a little different here. And then since I want this one here to stand out, that's maybe when I'll contrast, and then I'll make that a warm color, a bright, saturated, warm color for this panel right here. So that one is then reinforces kind of the focal point panel because it's the largest and because it has that bright color. And within each one of these panels, I can kind of just stay monochromatic or warm colors for these ones. And I can stay monochromatic and cool colors for these panels as well. And it really doesn't matter, whereas like, okay, in these early panels, the buildings are blue-gray, but then in that late panel, the buildings are warm. It doesn't really matter. You can switch that up to whatever will work best for your story. Don't worry about, oh, the buildings change color. Well, they change color because we changed moods in that illustration, which is completely fine. And then you'll just kind of refine your drawings the same way you would if you're doing a single large illustration. Then you can draw them with a little more detail, make the line work cleaner, and then have that good use of Photoshop to finish off the colors. But keeping the panel simple and on a grid so that you can logically come in here and be like, I can follow these from left to right. I follow this panel down to here and then to this panel, okay? This panel here, over here. So you can kind of draw a logical line through your panels like that. That is gonna help with the readability and the clarity. And just making sure you have that establishing shot on each page will also make it super clear to your viewer there. Okay, any questions on that? All right. And you can use word balloons if you want for your panel. Just make sure you leave space for word balloons. But so what would be really bad, you know, let's just say we had a nice, you know, close up of a character that you wanted to be talking or saying something. Let's try, you know, nice close up of your character here. You want this character to be talking. But there's not really room for a word balloon and it like overlaps and feels really crammed in there. Okay, so just make sure you leave empty space for a word balloon. So if I wanted to have a close-up, but I wanted a word balloon in there, I would just have to put my character down here a little bit more in the character or in the corner, at least space up here for that word balloon. You just don't want them to feel cramped, if that makes sense. Or you can just go for silent. You don't have to include word balloons because your picture should tell the story as well. All right. Any questions on comic pages? I bet a couple people will end up doing that. Usually there's just a couple comic pages for the final, but I want to make sure you guys have kind of just the basics of that as we get going with the final. All right, so let's just look at a few quick examples of other artists here before we call it a day. So here are some character design sheets. Oh, I don't know if I'm not sure what story this is from, but what I like about this one is the contrast of characters and how they're starting with these simple shapes to kind of define the overall look of a character, how the character holds themselves. They stand up straight. Are they hunched over? Are they big, wide guys, tall, skinny guys? And then you can see that evolution of ideas, but first kind of the overall shape and silhouette is figured out, and then they add in those details. So you don't want to start putting on details till you kind of have that structure and overall shape figured out. But it will help you a lot, and it will make it easier to add on these fun details that create an interesting storytelling character once you have those simple shapes and that silhouette figured out. But all those little details should come second, but they should reinforce what you already have figured out here. And if these were all characters from the same story, all these shapes look very different from one another. Okay, so no two of these characters are kind of the same shape or carry themselves the same. But starting from simple, building on it, and then adding those details. You guys recognize these characters? Yes, so yeah, Disney has really good character designs there. And I like these characters from Monsters, Inc. because they are super simplified down to the very basic simple shapes there. Obviously, when they're in the final movie and there's colored versions of them, there's details of their, you know, skin texture, fur texture, more details of the facial expression. But when you can really just distill the characters down to those really simple, basic shapes, you want to make sure that they can be recognizable that way before you add on more of those details. Oh, here's some from Ratatouille. Again, contrast of different types of shapes of characters there. So short, tall, skinny, round, boxy, triangular, tapering, but no two characters there look the same. Even though they're all pretty much wearing the same outfit, they're all wearing the chef outfit. Each character still stands out from one another. I wish this was a bigger image. Here we go. So this is a book called The Skillful Huntsman, and a bunch of art, I think they were students at the time, basically designed a video game that would never be made. So they would just want to go through the creative process of designing characters, backgrounds, vehicles, things like that. So I just wanted you guys to take a look at these silhouette shapes here that they came up with. So look how cool all these different silhouette shapes are, and how diverse you can have these silhouettes be without any details, okay? So you can really do a lot just with that silhouette before you add on any details. So then once you do those silhouettes, then they came over and did some head designs and then finalized the details of that character. But you can get such a variety without even getting into details that you should go through that process of looking at the silhouettes first and then eventually getting to a detailed finished drawing. Oh, this is from Paranorman, I believe. Have you guys seen this movie? Leica Studios, that does all stop motion animation. They're located down in Portland, but really great character designs here. And here you can see the pencil sketch to then what the final animated character looks like as well. So I think that's always really cool to see the thought process of the artists that were working on these characters, to go from, you know, rough and sketchy to finished color version. So yeah, your guys' versions for the assignment, you can have just the drawing be like this, and you can just put on simple colors. You don't need like detailed shadow colors, just enough colors so you can kind of figure out what sort of colors your characters will be like. But good variety of shapes there. I like the exaggeration of shapes here and simplified characters. Works out well. Here's some more starting. So I think they did these versions here kind of how I did, how I made the silhouette larger and then just come in to add details on there. So both of these characters have really good silhouettes. Think about those accessories. So what do they always carry around with them? How does the hair flow in the wind? Does the hair spiky up? Is it flat to the skull? Does it just come out on the side? So a lot of that can add in unique silhouettes for your characters. Oh no, Ryan, you can't do Monsters, Inc. So you can't do a story that already exists. So if you were to do that Red Riding Hood, you would have to do it as, you know, your own version of Red Riding Hood. So you could design monster type characters for Red Riding Hood and then make your Red Riding Hood character a monster and the wolf a monster. But yeah, you can't use like characters that have already been designed by other artists. This is just a nice comic page here. So here's this 3-panel layout, which is, I find oftentimes 3 panels is just a really nice layout. It allows you to really have a nice big panel where you can get a good establishing shot with the characters and location. But I like I love the design of these characters, the big round guy and the little kid there. They contrast really nicely and really exaggerated shapes. All right. Great Mouse Detective. All right, and a couple comic page examples. So I thought this one was laid out well. So we got 4 panels here, where this first one is kind of the establishing shot and using that vertical panel. So you see they're in a big tall room there. You see the one character coming to open the door. They're about to open the door, those transitions we talked about. And then you get a nice full shot of the character and then followed by 2 mediums to kind of see that emotional reaction of what's going on. This one's from The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. So this one has a few more panels. This one has like 5 or 6, but you still have that one big main kind of focal point panel where you see characters over the city there, full drawings of the characters, but a wide shot of that entire city. Then you move to some silhouettes and some close-ups for the rest of the story. All right, well, I hope that gives you guys enough information to complete the final project and feel confident as you're going into it. That's pretty much it for today in terms of any new information. But please email me during the week if any questions come up, if you want to run story ideas by me, if you want to send me any thumbnail drawings or character design sketches, feel free to do that. And then I will make the discussion, and it'll be due Friday to have a critique of some of your work in progress. So you probably want to submit thumbnails. If you have character designs or other work, that will be also good for you to submit. But again, if you can get all 7 of those thumbnails done and submitted to the discussion, that will be best. I saw some people turned in the extra credit urban sketching, so I'll get those graded later today. You'll see that. But yeah, that'll be it. Yeah, I think this class went well. I really like the work you guys have come up with over the quarter, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with for the final. But yeah, let me know if you have questions before you log off. And other than that, I'll have the open lab hours next week if you have any last minute questions, but this will be our last official regular class. And good luck on the finals.